Hey, you guys, Yophi here, and it is finally coming down. The snow is coming, so I'm really glad for that. I've been waiting for it to snow for months, so I really love the snow. Anyway, I did a post on my social media the other day, and it seems to get a lot of attention, so I do want to do just this short video. Hopefully it won't be too long for you guys. It was about the judgment again. But that is a trigger word in my country, so hopefully you guys will be able to see what Jesus was talking about, how it's used incorrectly, and how we should be using it. So a lot of times it comes from, I'm going to read the scriptures. I have them down here on my computer, and I'm going to read them to you. All right, so Matthew 7, a lot of times that's what's used, because verse 1 says, "Judge not that ye be judged." Now, people use that to say, see, Jesus said, judge not. The problem is, that's not the end of what he's talking about. So we have to read it in context. All right, I'm going to read to you the whole thought. He says, judge not, don't judge, so that you're not judged. For, this is because, with the judgment that you use, the judgment that you judge, you shall be judged. So the way that you judge people is the way that you're going to be judged by God, right? So then he says, why look at the mote, the little piece in your brother's eye, but then not consider that there's a big beam in your eye? You hypocrite. First, see, this is what he's saying, do. First, take the beam out of your own eye so that you can see correctly. Then you cast the mote out of your brother's eye. So basically what he's saying here, he's not saying don't judge. He's telling you how to judge. He's saying you should judge, but you should not judge hypocritically. That's why he says, you hypocrite. First, take the piece out of your own eye. Deal with your own self. Then, when you see correctly, you'll be able to help your brother. So he's telling you how to judge here. A lot of times we don't do that. We will have sin in our own life, not even look at that, and then go to somebody else and judge them harshly and say, you bad person. Unfortunately, this is what people are doing. They are not looking at themselves, but then when somebody else does something, they're like, this bad person, they're horrible. Well, how are they so horrible when you're doing some of the same stuff? That's what Jesus is saying. He's not saying you can't look at somebody who's beating their wife and say, that's wrong. Well, who are you to judge? What do you mean, who am I to judge? What you're doing is wrong. But if I'm also beating my wife, I don't have a right to tell you that. So he's not saying you can't tell anybody anything because you're not perfect. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that if you're doing the same stuff, you're not even trying to help your brother. You're just trying to put somebody down. So don't judge when you haven't, basically, don't write a check that you can't cash. Don't tell somebody to stop doing something and you're doing the same thing. Don't tell somebody to stop drinking and you've got a beer in your hand. You see, that's what he's saying. So be careful of that. And just to show you this, just to show you that this is real, go to Matthew 23 and 23. Jesus says, these are his words, woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. There goes that word hypocrites again. For you pay tithes of mint and anise and cumin, all of these things, and have omitted, you have scratched out the weightier matters of the law, judgment, see, judgment's in there, mercy and faith. These you ought to have done, and not leave the other undone. So judgment's in there. You're supposed to judge. You're just not supposed to judge hypocritically. You're not supposed to look at weightier matters of the law and omit that stuff, and then go to other things and say, well, this is important, right? So you have things like abortion is a hot topic. A lot of times we pass by that. We say, go ahead, kill your kids, right? Kill them. But I tell you what, you better not choose this light bulb. See, these are big things, light bulbs. But then the other issues, the Pharisees were like, we're going to gloss over those and we're going to go to this. He's like, judgment is a big part. All right? So you skip over those parts. When he says that you're supposed to have them, you're supposed to judge. John chapter 7 and verse 24. If a man on the Sabbath day, this is verses 23 and 24, these Jesus talking. If a man on the Sabbath day receives circumcision, that the law of Moses should not be broken, are you angry at me because I have made a man every whit whole on the Sabbath day? Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Jesus is telling you to judge. You see, so don't look at Matthew 7 and say, don't judge people. That's not what he's saying. He's saying you need to judge righteously. You're supposed to judge. You're not supposed to not judge. If you tell somebody, hey, good tie on, I really like that tie, that's a judgment. Okay? So there are a lot of things that are judgments. Judgments are just decisions. You're supposed to make judgments. You're just not supposed to make decisions while being a hypocrite. You're not supposed to make judgments incorrectly, unrighteously. So when somebody calls you judgmental, thank you. I'm supposed to be judgmental. But is my judgment correct? That's what you need to wonder. Is your judgment correct? Because if your judgment is not righteous, then that's hypocritical judgment. That's incorrect judgment. Let's go into this. Watch this. Because 1 Corinthians chapter 4, I believe that was brought up on the post. Let a man so consider us as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that one be found faithful. But with me, it is a very small thing that I should be judged by you or by a human court. In fact, I do not even judge myself. For I know of nothing against myself, yet I am not justified by this, but he who judges me is the Lord. Therefore, this is what people say, therefore, judge nothing before the time until the Lord comes, who will both bring to light the hidden things of darkness and reveal the counsels of the hearts. Then each one's praise will come from God. So people use that and say, see, judge nothing before the time. That's not what he's saying. If you read it in context, he's saying this: don't make decisions before you know what's going on. Judge nothing before the time until the Lord comes, who will both bring to light the hidden things of darkness and reveal the counsels of the heart. So he's basically saying you guys are making decisions about people before you even know what's going on. But God's going to show the truth. God will reveal it. And if you notice, there are a lot of people who make judgments before the time. I'm going to bring a hot topic: the police. As soon as they hear that the police do something, they judge. And they say, this is unjust. You don't even know what's going on yet. Right? We had that. I use for an example the Ronald Davis shooting. You had parades and Black Lives Matter movements all before the footage was released. And then come to find out that Ronald Davis actually attacked the police officer with a knife and a flashlight for some reason. And then got shot and died. But what was being released? You judged before the appointed time. You judged before you knew what was going on. That is called prejudgment. And another word for prejudgment is prejudice. Paul is saying, don't do that. You don't know what's going on. God's going to reveal what's going on here. God will reveal people's hearts. Right? So that's what Paul is saying there in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. Now go ahead 2 chapters and look at what he says in chapter 6 to these same Corinthians. Remember, this is one letter. Okay? 1 Corinthians 6. I'm going to start at verse 1. Dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unjust and not before the saints? So he's like, if you have a matter, why are you going to unjust judges? Why are you going to people who are not Christian to judge you? You see, if there was no one to judge, if you're not supposed to judge, why are these Corinthians, why does Paul have a problem with them being judged by people who are not Christian? You see that? Watch this, verse 2. Do you not know that saints shall judge the world? Thought you weren't supposed to judge. And if the world shall be judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matters? So if we have to judge the world, why can't you guys settle your differences without going to the world? Know you not that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? He's like, you guys can't judge these small matters? You're going to unjust judges? You're going to unbelievers? If then you have judgments of things pertaining to this life, set them to judge who are least esteemed in the church. He's like, anybody can judge like that. Anybody in the church can judge like that. Anybody who's saved can judge. Now, verse 5, watch this. I speak to your shame. He's like saying that this is pathetic, you guys. It is so that there is not a wise man among you. No, not one shall be able to judge between his brethren. But brother goes to law with brother, and that before unbelievers. So he's saying you should judge. You should know how to judge smaller matters between yourselves. All of this is in here telling you how to judge, not don't judge. Don't fall for that stuff. When people talk about don't judge, leave the judging up to God. Are you kidding me? If you so much as make a right turn when you're driving, that's a judgment. That's a decision. Okay? If you see somebody and they're beating somebody in the alleyway and you choose to save that person, that's a judgment. You judge that person. Okay? So all of these things, you guys, be careful. When people call you judgmental, good. You're supposed to be, everybody's judgmental. The question is, are they judging correctly? Are they judging the way that God judges? Because if they are, then they are judging righteously. If they're not, then they are not judging righteously. But you're still judging. Okay? So I hope that clears that up. I tried to make it under 10 minutes. We didn't get there. But I hope that this helps you. And peace be to you. All right?